Hello, this is our critical discourse number 3, and I am Meg.
I'm Megan.
I'm Dylan.
Melody.
And Melanie.
So we spent a little bit of time before we hit record trying to decide what we wanted to talk about. So I think we're going to start with our article that we read for yesterday as a lead up into our focus on the arts and the inclusion of art in social studies. I really enjoyed the activity yesterday. I thought it was interesting, and I thought it tied in with the article quite well. I enjoyed the article, and I liked its emphasis of the arts. And I've had varying exposure to the arts in the past, and I think I know that they often get cast aside, and that article argues that they get cast aside, and emphasizes the benefits of an arts education.
Yeah, and I think in the article too it talks about how it gets passed up because it's looked at as a subject rather than as an experience and a way of experiencing things and knowing things. And like I even tied in like the mosaic we did yesterday, we each contributed like one small square to create a whole. And if you think about it, it kind of does tie in with the article we had to read for today for the Frere article about how if every person was to just contribute or make a difference or something, that does contribute to a greater whole. So, and it has to start with the individual. So, yeah, that's kind of what I kind of linked them.
You need to create that sense of empathy, right, for your fellow.
But that Bruno also, like, an extension from that is how Bruno was talking about not what is art, but what is art for. And so he brought in the journey and the process of the creation of art and aligning it, paralleled it completely to some big thoughts and big questions. So we were looking at power struggles and power relations, as well as how we can individually lessen global exploitation, environmental exploitations around the world. And we were simply asked to draw about it and think about it. And Bruno, I really appreciated how he was talking about it's the conversations that you guys were having that was the learning process. Then, yes, we had a concrete example, the mosaic, afterwards, but it wasn't necessarily about that. It was also about the journey and the process, and then we had this really cool community connecting moment at the end, and everyone's like, oh, this is so great, I did that one, looking, wow, who did this? And then also how Alex put a pine cone on, and he just took it a whole different direction, and it's totally acceptable, and there's so much meaning behind that.
And everybody was focused on the same kind of themes, right? So that just brought us all together. We all went off and did our little groups and our little work, but everybody was connected by a similar theme. And, you know, it took one person, Bruno, saying, let's think about this. And then all 35 of us, we followed suit, and we came up with this beautiful thing at the end that connected all of us and what we were thinking about and all of the ideas and conversations that we had throughout the process.
I think this acts as a perfect example of what we should be doing in our own classrooms.
Yeah.
What are we assessing for? I mean, how many times have we talked in our other classes about how do we assess? What do we assess? It's come up in TI, it's come up, right? I mean, what are we assessing for? Are we assessing for that little square that they painted at the end of that time? Or are we assessing for the process and the conversations and the learning that's going on that you don't have that concrete proof of?
And are we assessing, this is totally on another track, but are we assessing for the student, or are we assessing for the administration? And I think that perhaps the mosaic can do both very well, provides a platform to do both very well.
It also comes back to a question with the assessment is about the curriculum as well. Like, who designs the curriculum? Why do we have the curriculum? What purpose does it serve? And I posted a video on a content-free social studies classroom, and this guy, it's a TED Talk, and he's talking about how the best learning happens when students can actively engage in what they're learning about in a way that's personal, as versus being told you need to know this fact and this date and this map, and that'll be on the quiz at the end of the month, right? So I think to teach social studies and to think about the curriculum and assessment, it always has to be focused around the students, and the further we take it away from the students, the worse social studies becomes in the classroom.
And that's kind of been the focus of the whole
Yeah.
course, I think, is the biggest takeaway, is to come at it from different angles. And, makes you think.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, a lot of the topics we've covered in the course aren't new to me, but we've looked at them in a different light. And I think it's,
And I think a lot of people, especially in the unit planning, are trying to figure out, oh, what exactly should I do my unit plan on? And it's so false and inorganic when you try and sit and plan, like, I'm going to teach about this and this and this and this, and the gold rush happened, and we're just going to teach about those dates and the people who were involved in that. And it's not inorganic. We learn about something that is so important to our history, right? And that had such an impact on so many different people.
On one of my reflections on folios, I talked about the different definitions of what social studies is. I'm not sure if any of you have read them, but I found a definition each by Oxford English Dictionary, Merriam-Webster Dictionary, the U.S. American National Council for the Social Studies, as well as the Manitoba's Government Ministry of Education, and also the BCIRP. And I thought it was highly reflective of our goals in social studies, depending on what the definition of social studies is. It totally changes everything. So I'll just read two. The OED, Oxford English Dictionary, says that defines social studies as the various aspects or branches of the study of human society, now especially considered as an educational discipline, including the study of politics, economics, sociology, history, etc. As compared to the U.S. American National Council for the Social Studies, they say that social studies is the integrated study of the social sciences and humanities to promote civic competence. So their whole idea is completely different, and I think that's reflected in their curriculum. Have any of you looked at the BCIRP's definition of social studies? In my opinion, much more open. So I was very impressed to see that we already are on the right track. It says the aim of social studies K to 7 is to develop thoughtful, responsible, and active citizens who are able to acquire the requisite information to consider multiple perspectives and to make reasoned judgments. How incredible is that?
Grades.
How incredible is that? We already are on the right track, and I think that a lot of people are still caught up in this frustrated perspective, myself included, with certain topics for sure. But just to acknowledge that, wow, the curriculum is developed not by us, but they have that sorted, in my opinion.
I feel that's an important aspect of it that tends to get forgotten. It'd be interesting to see what it would have been back when I was going through school.
Yeah.
Because that definitely wasn't the focus.
But I feel like, and that is
Right.
like their overarching premise for social studies, but then when you look into individual grades, I feel like it maybe can get lost, because then it's like you're looking at what you're focusing on for each grade, and it's like, oh, you have to teach them what date Confederation was, and this and that, and like, so while that message is so important, and I think that's amazing that we have that message, I feel like when you read that, I was like, wow, that's like what we've been talking about in this class the whole time. But then I'm thinking about whenever I look at the curriculum for like a specific grade, I'm like, I never had that in the forefront of my mind with what I was looking at what I had to cover.
For me, I totally agree.
Yeah.
But I'm starting to try and look at the PLOs only as a medium in which to teach these greater messages. So if you don't get through it, whatever, it's just a medium to teach these other more important theories.
A lot of the times it comes down to so many teachers wanting those guidelines of what they need to teach, and especially the older generation of teachers, they're so hung up on the curriculum and what points do I have to meet every single year. Whereas if you branch it out to that bigger idea of creating global citizens, a lot more learning can occur, and maybe you take a completely different path and you don't study the gold rush, but that's fine because you're still learning something, as long as you take a global citizen point of view.
And I think it's important to keep that global citizen perspective, right? And I think it kind of I mean, yesterday in Transformative Inquiry really touched me with Alex and his presentation and his whole idea that we can't create this empathy for people around the world until we create empathy within the classroom, right? And I think that's a really important thing to keep in mind with social studies and teaching it, is there's all these issues of water and fair trade and poverty, huge issues, but if we can't deal with those issues within the classroom,
So
we're not going to be able to take care of it beyond that.
yeah, so it's like teaching, like we said, to care for each other in the classroom, and then we can maybe care for others globally. We could take it with global citizens the same way, like focusing on being a local. What does it mean to be like a local citizen? And then looking at the broader thing of global citizenship. I feel like you could take it the same way too. Start locally and then build your.
Yeah. Anyone have any final comments?
Last word?
No. Last word. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for listening.
Bye.
Bye.